So one of the things that we wanted to come back to is the tokenization of equities. So far, most of the use cases we've seen have been in very opaque things like private credit, stuff like that. So let's talk about Galaxy. They just issued their equity as a token. So thoughts, good, bad, indifferent?
I think you can look at Galaxy. What we've starting to see is there's three different models of tokenization that are beginning to kind of come of age in the equity space. The first is what Robinhood and Kraken and others are doing, where they're tokenizing at the broker-dealer level. It really initially is a way of opening up U.S. markets to emerging markets where they may not have been able to easily participate in the U.S. I believe it's an interim solution. I don't know if others agree, but the next step is you start hearing NASDAQ and the DTCC talking about tokenization at that level. And what Galaxy did, which is, in my view, is probably the long-term game here, is you're going to see tokenization at the issuer level, right? So the public company issuers, private companies, mutual funds, other types of asset classes will tokenize through a transfer agent or some form. And then they're going to be able to take advantage of really global liquidity. And so the example I often give, Broadridge, we're a $30 billion public company. We trade on the New York Stock Exchange. And through that, if I could guess, we probably have access to about 250 million investors, those who direct invest through equities and those who buy mutual funds. Imagine tomorrow if we were actually listed on the top 100 exchanges all at the same time globally. We would have access to 3.5 billion people. Liquidity would increase. And you're talking about the most liquid market in the world, the United States. But you'd add additional liquidity. You would provide efficiencies and cost reductions. And frankly, by giving someone a tokenized asset, they can tie into DeFi, which actually provides them an opportunity to generate additional yield. And at the end of the day, returns is what drives the investment markets. And if you can actually have broker A, I get an 8% return, broker B, I get a 9% return, where are you going to put your money?
Yeah, and stablecoins are the gateway drug, right?
They really are, yeah.
Another advantage of, I think, the Galaxy tokenizing their Class A shares is just that there's now global distribution.
Absolutely.
There's 24/7 settlement, but there's also fragmented liquidity. And I think that's one of the disadvantages. And so one of the things we've been focused on is really building full stack infrastructure and figuring out how do you, at the issuance level, right, tokenize equity. We just announced something with Animoca, where we are working with that team, working with shareholders of Animoca to tokenize their equity on our 24/7 exchange. And so that's an interesting opportunity where Animoca actually announced their an RTO that they're moving towards with NASDAQ. Even in the private markets, there's an opportunity for tokenization that leads up into a company going public.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I would add here is that, as I've sort of seen this space evolve myself over the last 4 or 5 years, one of the interesting nuances is when people go through these kind of like, at least previously, tokenization experiments and now increasingly like real investment, the big shift is in actually issuing on chain as opposed to just creating a tokenized representation of paper.
Well said.
And I think that's one of the big differences that we're actually starting to see here is people take the latter seriously. Because the former, it's like the equivalent of you see a robot, but there's actually a person inside kind of moving it around. We're now actually making that transition. And I think that's where we really do have the potential. It's a lot harder to do it that way.
Yep.
But without that, it's really just a series of experiments.